A lot of NFL stuff happened that I think is worthy of talking about. So first off, the Saints signed Brian Poole to a 1-year deal. And as a Jets fan, Jack and I are Jets fans, we know how good Brian Poole is. He's been one of the better slot corners in the NFL the last couple of years. He can play outside as well. And this was big for the Saints. They lost Trey Hendrickson, Janoris Jenkins, and now the secondary includes Lattimore, Gardner Johnson, Brian Poole, Marcus Williams, Malcolm Jenkins. I mean, their defense is really good, but it's just about that offense if they can click without Michael Thomas. But I think Brian Poole was an excellent signing, and whoever his agent is, he has to fire him today because the fact that Brian Poole is only getting 1-year deals and not even multi-year contracts is a travesty.
Yeah, I think, for the Saints this year, it's really about that defense. I think with losing Drew Brees, MT, we just found out he's going to be out for a little bit. Kamara's going to do a lot of the carrying like he did earlier in the season last year, and that Saints defense is going to have to hold its own all year. And I think with bringing in Brian Poole, it fills up that second corner slot because we know what Marshawn Lattimore could do. We know how good Marcus Williams is. We know how good that defensive line is. So it's really just about getting Brian Poole in there. And I think that defense is going to do a lot of the carrying.
Yeah, I was hoping the Jets would bring back Brian Poole. And, I thought last year the fact that they got him back on a 1-year deal was a steal. I think he was only making like $5 million too, which is crazy.
For what, you guys?
Yeah, last year. And he was one of the better slot corners in the entire league. So this is a great addition for the Saints, under the radar. And I think their secondary is going to be awesome again. But like you said, I think the offense is going to be the big question mark. The defense is really going to have to step up. This is a nice addition.
They better not start Gadget Guy.
And the next thing that happened is that the Minnesota Vikings signed wide receiver Dede Westbrook. And I do think this is a big-time move.
You think so, really?
I do, because I think they need a wide receiver number 3.
Okay.
And last year, the Vikings were one of the worst teams at kick returning and punt returning. Dede Westbrook, I think last year or 2 years ago, had a longer kick or punt return than the Vikings had all year last year in terms of like total yards returning. Whoa. Dede Westbrook is a guy who you can bank on having 600 to 7 yards receiving every single year. He did that in Jacksonville with the bad quarterback in Blake Bortles and then Gardner Minshew, who's not that good. And he's also reuniting with his wide receiver coach in Keenan McCardle, who was his coach in Jacksonville. So I think that familiarity, along with him, his production, can help at that offense. I mean, now you have Adam Thielen, you have Dalvin Cook, Justin Jefferson, Irv Smith Jr. Dede Westbrook as a wide receiver number 3 is really freaking good.
Yeah, you kind of just completely like changed my whole mindset on it. Because, throwing up 600, 700 yards with a bad QB, he was probably the number 1 or the number 2 receiver in Jacksonville. He probably received a lot of attention. Now in Minnesota, you're not going to see double coverage. You're not going to see a lot of man or the best corner of the other team because JJ and Adam Thielen is going to get a lot of the touches and see a lot of those elite corners. So this is a chance for him to really blossom and really get that shine and become that number 3 dominant receiver in the NFL.
Yeah, you guys kind of hit on all the points. Like, there's probably not 5 better situations in the league to go to as the number 3 wide receiver than the Vikings right now. You're going to be getting some of the best looks of your life in that 3 spot behind Adam Thielen and Justin Jefferson. How is any defense going to cover the 3rd wide receiver on that team? So it's going to be huge opportunities for DD this year, and I like what the Vikings have done this offseason.
Yeah, I mean, I think they are a sleeper team. I really do. The Vikings, to me, we'll talk about it later on in the show, but, man, they are my sleeper team this season. If Kirk Cousins was just clutcher, if they had, let's say this, if they had Josh Allen, they're going to the Super Bowl.
Oh, that's firm.
If they had a top 5 quarterback, top 7, they go to the Super Bowl. But Kirk Cousins, just his track record in big-time games, it kind of scares me off. But, Westbrook was a great addition, and I'm looking forward to see what he does. He's coming back from a torn ACL. So we'll see if that affects him. But I think now in the modern sports world, an ACL isn't what it used to be. Yeah. An ACL used to be your career is over. But now it's not that anymore. Another wide receiver move that happens that the Bears traded Anthony Miller to the Texans. He's a slot wide receiver, and it just came out that the Texans are about to trade Randall Cobb back to the Packers so they can make Aaron Rodgers happy. I think this was okay. I mean, Miller's an average receiver. I think this entire offseason has been made up of the Texans just getting average NFL players and filling out that roster. And the Bears will be fine. They have Denier Bird, who was
Darnell
the
Mooney.
Patriots' best wide receiver last year. They have Marquise Goodwin, who's one of the fastest receivers in the NFL. Darnell Mooney, Allen Robinson. I think they didn't need Anthony Miller. So this was a win for the Bears, and I guess win for the Texans because I think Anthony Miller is average.
Yeah, this is like a whatever move. Realistically, I only care about the Texans because they're about to trade Deshaun Watson to the Eagles.
Are they?
I hope to God. Like, I'm praying at my house. But this is just whatever move. Anthony Miller is cool. I like his name. You know, he's a pretty good receiver. He's average at best. But this is just Texans just being the Texans.
I mean, the first thing I thought about when I heard about this deal was Randall Cobb going back to the Packers because I know that was one of the top requests from
Last
Aaron
dance.
Rodgers. And, when he came back, it kind of signaled that move was going to go in motion. So, like you guys said, it's kind of a whatever move. I don't think it makes a big difference for either of these teams. And, I do wonder what happens with the Bears receiving core next year because I don't think Allen Robinson is going to come back after his tag is up.
Yeah.
And, I wonder what the dynamic's going to be there if they look receiver next year in the draft or whatever. So just another guy out of the mix there when they have to reevaluate this offseason.
Two more things happen, and that's the Seahawks and Jamal Adams aren't close on a deal, but they have said that they're willing to make him the highest paid safety in the NFL. Right now, the highest paid safety is Justin Simmons at $15.2 million, but Jamal Adams wants $18 million.
Yeah.
And the highest paid safety would be $16 million, but I think Jamal Adams doesn't want that. He wants 18, closer to 20, and three-time Pro Bowler, 83 tackles last season, 11 for loss, 9.5 sacks. He set the safety sack record, or the sack record for secondary players, 14 quarterback hits. Jamal Adams is a dog, but this happened with New York, with the Jets, is that he wanted more money, and he was a problem. He was causing a rift, and the Jets traded him for 2 first-round picks, and it ended up turning into Elijah Vera Tucker, which I'm very happy about. And the Seahawks have no choice but to pay Adams because they already traded those 2 firsts for Jamal Adams. And Jamal Adams has said that he's going to report to camp. So it's not like he's sitting out. He's going to still report to camp and play for them. But that's what he wants right now.
I think this is kind of like the same. It's not same, but sort of like the situation with Xavier Howard, where he's looking at his other safeties and he feels like he's the best in the league. He wants to get paid like he's the best in the league, and he thinks he's better than the other safeties in the league. And it's right to feel that way. Jamal Adams is without a doubt, if not the best, he is one of the best safeties in the league. But like you said, the Seahawks are going to have to do it because they already traded away their picks, and they're kind of in a situation where they kind of need to keep that talent around Russell Wilson and continue to be competitive in his prime.
Yeah, it was always my concern with the Jets was giving out that big extension to Jamal Adams. And if it was $16 million, I think that's something I can live with because that's around, what you're paying for a safety. But when you're talking like 18 to 20,
yeah,
especially when you get towards 20, because that was the number that I heard when he was in New York, what he was looking for was $20 million. Now you're talking like elite level edge rusher talent, and that usually has much more of a bigger impact on the game. It's
QB
an impact,
money.
more of an impact position. So, that number scares me to give out to a safety, especially one that is historically not great in coverage. That's not to take away from what he does because he is one of, if not the best safety in the league. I just don't know if I'm going to pay him $20 million a year, and that was always my concern with the Jets. So I don't blame the Seahawks for being tentative.
And the last big time thing that happened is that Chandler Jones has requested a trade from the Arizona Cardinals. And I'm not sure how I feel about this. I mean, when they first got J.J. Watt, I thought a duo of J.J. and Chandler Jones is awesome. I think Chandler Jones doesn't get traded, but a scenario I thought of was the Cardinals trading Chandler Jones to the Dolphins for Xavier Howard. The Dolphins get an edge rusher, and the Cardinals get a great cornerback in Xavier Howard and fill that need for them.
But wouldn't they have to pay Howard?
Yeah, they would.
So either way, they got to pay somebody, right? So it's like, who would you rather pay? You know what I'm saying? Xavier.
I'd rather pay Xavier Howard right now.
He just had a monster year. He played like the best cornerback in the NFL. But I was reading up on it. Chandler, he did report to practice, if I'm not mistaken. So he is going to still play. I think he's probably going to – I think he's probably going to play out this last year and just leave. Him and J.J. Watt's going to be fun to watch. But I feel like Arizona should have definitely did something to keep that defensive line intact. Chandler Jones, he's a monster at his position. But like you said, trading him for Xavier Howard, obviously one of them is going to get paid. Xavier Howard kind of in the same situation, just wanted to feel like they're the best at their position, and that money makes them feel that way. So I understand it from Chandler Jones' perspective.
Yeah, and like you said, I kind of get where he's coming from. They gave J.J. Watt that big bag coming in this year, and I understand why he would feel a bit slighted, but I saw the Cardinals say essentially they're not entertaining it, which makes me happy because I love that they brought in J.J. Watt. They added to that defense. I think they could be a really good team. It helps out Kyler Murray and his development if his defense is better, and adding J.J. Watt next to Chandler Jones makes that Cardinals defense not only formidable but scary. So, it's going to be an exciting year to see, and you wonder if that team has some success this year, makes some noise, and gets to the playoffs if it doesn't change Chandler Jones' mind.